If you enjoy listening to The Edge, support them by subscribing to The Edge on iTunes, Stitcher, and you can listen through the iHeartRadio app. Get busy listening.
You're listening to The Edge with Mark Thompson.
Hi, this is Mark. Thank you for joining. This is sort of a cool episode in one specific respect. I am talking to Bean Baxter, who is this remarkable broadcaster. He's been on this morning show in Los Angeles for 30 years. And they're a dominant morning show, as you'll hear. We talk about it a bit on this podcast episode. But what I want you to know is I've known him for a really long time. I mean, we started our careers at roughly the same time. So we touch on that as well. And you'll hear Bean talk about, radio and moving to this next place. He's leaving the country to move to Britain. And so I'm anxious to talk to him about, all of these things, how you come to this decision and whether he's gotten reflective and all of these kinds of things. But more than anything, it's two guys who've known each other a really long time talking about life now in an industry that we both love, that's radio and broadcasting. Anyway, it's a standalone. So Michael Shore, I was going to put on the episode, but he's traveling. He's doing all this stuff with Election Day in many states and all this kind of thing. There are many places where Michael has to be and has to cover news related to the election. And I just couldn't get him on the episode. And I thought, wait a minute, this is, in a sense, a good thing because it's going to be a standalone with Bean. I think the conversation runs 40 minutes or 30 minutes, something like that. You'll get to know a little bit about Bean and a little bit about this moment as he finishes 30 years. We have a very big Southern California audience. You all will know Bean. And if you don't, and that's a nickname he's had since childhood. I think it's probably because he's so tall. But if you don't know who this guy is, you should know that he is massively successful and dominant. He and his partner have put together this group of great players, and they really do a very entertaining and informative show, the Kevin and Bean Show. So it's Bean for the half hour. Thanks for the ways you support the show. We have the new website up. We had an issue with the website, and as you know, I've been evacuated from my home. I will tell that story in the next episode as well. So we have a lot of stuff to catch up on, but please visit our website, edge-show.com. That's where you can support this podcast and this effort with a donation through the PayPal link or through just going through the Amazon click-through. Anywhere you see Amazon on the site, we get a little piece of whatever you spend. We don't know what you spend. We don't know what you buy, but we get a little piece of whatever you spend because you went through our site, edge-show.com. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your support. Let's get started.
This is The Edge.
The advantage, it means.
They let guy just spit on me for no reason.
That's horrible.
Is there some comfort in uncertainty, do you think?
You're a degenerate.
Because Australian Shepherds need action.
Wow. Yeah.
This is The Edge.
That's a self-loathing term that I use.
Oh, got it.
Rolling
Mark,
out.
Yeah, we're rolling.
Are you rolling solo on the show today, Mark?
I am. We had Jay Elvis, but he's got some pitch meeting or something. And I feel, in a way, I like to have Jay Elvis along, but I also feel as though you and I have a relationship for many years, and maybe in a way it's a good thing, So
It still feels like I'm kind of getting the B team a little bit here. But okay. Right.
It's Gene Bean Baxter, as he's referred to now by all of the articles that are detailing the fact that Bean Baxter is leaving Kevin and Bean, and indeed leaving these shores of this country to go live in the United Kingdom. Welcome, Bean Baxter.
Oh, thank you very much. Good to be here. It is a little bit like seeing your own funeral when you're reading what feels like obituaries every day in the trade papers. But yeah, I mean, they are memorializing that I'm leaving after 30 years.
30 years. I'm glad you said it. It seems extraordinary. I mean, this is a dominant morning show, obviously, otherwise you wouldn't last 30 years. But you're also on a radio station, for those who don't live in Southern California. This Kroq is like an alt-rock station, sort of, right? Describe Kroq to people.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's been through a lot of incarnations, even in the decades that I've been on the show. It's essentially an alt-rock station is what they call it now. It was a new wave station at one time. I mean, it just basically plays your left of center. It's not your classic rock station. It's your newer classic rock station.
And the reason I mention it, though, Bean, is that I think it's hard to, on a station that is not designed for, it's not like a KISS FM or like Z100, which is a mass appeal station. The station has an appeal from a music standpoint, that's very specific. You see what I'm trying to say?
Yes, and you're absolutely right. We are definitely not everybody's flavor, and that is the case with our morning show too. With the Kevin and Bean Morning Show, is we never have and never would appeal to the mass audience, the people who enjoy Ryan Seacrest. It's a different sensibility and a different sense of humor, a different point of view. Everything's just a little left of center, which is kind of what makes it fun. You've been on our show as a guest a number of times. You know what it's like. It's a different kind of attitude doing a show like that on our show.
I listen to the show and enjoy. I mean, I really do enjoy it. And you're very funny, which is amazing at that hour. I don't understand how you can do that. What time do you get up to do that show?
Well, remember, I'm one of the lucky ones in morning radio in this country because I work at home, so I don't have a commute to worry about. So my first alarm goes off at 4:05. And I'm usually up by 4:15. But there are a lot of people who get up a lot earlier than I do.
Okay.
My commute is down to the basement, And
you also, I'm glad you mentioned it. I mean, the thing about Kevin and Bean, Kevin is there in the studio in Los Angeles. Bean has lived in places like Seattle, where I think you still have a property. Maybe you're selling it now. And in Louisiana, where you've settled for the last few years.
Well, just as you can do your radio show wherever you happen to be that day, Mark, it's the same thing with me. I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to move away from Southern California after about 10 years with the show. So over 20 of the years now, I've been living out of state, and it's just worked out great for me, especially when I'm in New Orleans for most of every year because the time difference works in my favor. So I'm actually not going on the air until 7:30 in the morning. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, that is nice. I'll talk about the UK and all of that in a moment. But you're headed to New York after you sign off. The 7th of November will be Bean's last show. And then you guys go to the Radio Hall of Fame. It'll be a ceremony in New York City.
I'm so sick of all of these Hall of Fame ceremonies. I mean, at some point, they have to give us a break. We need time to recharge in between. How many speeches can I come up with, Mark?
Yeah, so much recognition. It's overwhelming.
That's the case. Yes, we're being inducted with a whole bunch of other far more talented people, including Jim Rome, by the way, who I look up to as a radio legend.
Yeah,
he's going to be there. Dr. Ruth Westheimer, somebody like that. I mean, I don't deserve to be in the same category with as Dr. Ruth.
Well, but bringing down the category is Ryan Seacrest. He'll also be in the.
You know what?
No, Ryan's very talented. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I actually think he's a very talented radio writer.
Is that your dog or mine barking right now?
I hope it's yours, because I don't have one.
Might be mine. Oh, you don't have one. Okay, it's definitely mine. That was Linus. Ryan Seacrest, look, his show is not for me, but no one hustles harder than Ryan Seacrest. Nobody has worked harder to deserve more success than Ryan Seacrest. You have to give it up for the dude. It seems like he never sleeps.
No, I was kidding, because the truth is that I think his real talent is as a radio personality. Again, it's not for everybody. I do think he's got the radio thing, arguably, even in a bigger way than he does television.
Well, it's nice to be recognized. I will tell you that, especially especially in an industry group that awards honors like this. It's always nice when somebody in your field says, "Hey, we recognize what you're doing, and you're doing a nice thing." And I also look at it as it's just something that's great to have on my resume for the next step. I don't know if it will count for anything when I'm going, peddling my wares in the UK, but at least I can say somebody thought I was decent at this.
So you are leaving this 30-year thing at Kevin and Bean and Kroq, this dominant morning show. I mean, tremendous amount of money. And you're going to UK, and as you say, this United Kingdom thing, you don't even know whether you're going to have a job there. Is that right?
I'm starting from scratch. I mean, I'm literally just going to be knocking on doors. I do have, a number. Linus, Daddy's talking here, buddy. Come on. Linus is very excited about his first airplane ride to the UK, by the way. In a few weeks.
That's a tough one. And he's an English bulldog. Is that right?
He is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am starting from scratch. I literally am throwing my entire career away and starting over, knocking on doors at my age and with my dumb accent, and hoping that somebody will give me an opportunity.
Well. You must have connects there, right? I mean, you have connections.
I do know people. Yeah, I've made some friends and some industry contacts over the years, but certainly nobody ready to to give me a job yet. But I'm excited about the challenge. It's not that it's not challenging every day to wake up and try to do another morning show, but it's a different kind of challenge that's kind of exciting. And I'm just looking forward to seeing where it leads me. It could end up being a big mistake, but I've not regretted it since my wife and I made the decision to go. I announced it back in March that I was leaving before the end of this year. And not one time have I woken up and panicked that I thought I was making the wrong decision. Because I want to be able to move. I mean, no one loves traveling more than you do, Mark. I want to be able to move while I'm young enough and healthy enough to enjoy traveling and to enjoy.
So are you saying that we're going to be traveling together a little bit, you and me, maybe around Europe?
I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm just saying
okay.
you can identify with somebody who wants the opportunity to spend more time in other countries.
I see. I thought we were finally maybe going to have we do one of those buddy trips. We could post a lot to Instagram and have one of those. No, even a weekend.
Maybe Seacrest could go with you. You could ask him.
That's an idea.
So I'm just excited about it. Even if I end up not getting a job, I still think it's the right decision. I still think it's a fun journey to go and live in England.
I agree. I mean, of course, I agree.
It's my hometown, London. So
you're a British citizen.
Yes.
In addition to being an American citizen.
That's right. Yeah, from birth. Yeah. So it's not like I just picked a random city I don't know anything about. I mean, I've got lots of family there, lots of friends there, and Donna does as well, my wife. So yeah, we're just really, really excited about it. And, people keep coming up to me and they want me to be all misty about leaving Kroq, and I'm sure there will come a time where I'm nostalgic for it. But right now, I'm so focused on just getting past this week, getting past the travel, getting past the move, and settling down in my new home. I mean, I'm really looking forward a lot more than I'm looking backward right now. Even though I'm leaving this job in this industry in this country, I don't feel like I'm in a reflective mood at all yet. But maybe that'll hit me down the road.
Yeah, I'm sure that it will. I mean, how you process this, I'm sure, is going to be sort of interesting. You're moving to London at a time when Brexit is the issue. I mean, you're really getting there. You're moving into the teeth of a controversial political period in England.
I am unfamiliar with this Brexit that you're speaking of. Is this in the news? I just think it's frying pan meet fire is what it is.
Yeah,
I mean, you couldn't.
Yeah.
It's hard to pick two democratic nations that are in bigger turmoil right now than ours are. But we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. I don't want to get too political on you.
Yeah, Green Day dropped by, according to this article. I'm just reading all these articles about you. They're all lovingly talking about your career, as they should. I mean, it really is a distinguished career. Green Day drops by. They dropped some new music during the final Kevin and Bean's breakfast. But that's right, it was the final one. You guys do those regularly. That would be the last one.
That's right.
And
everything is last right now.
Everything is last.
No, it's true because, you wake up and you go, hey, this is this segment that we do, animal stories or whatever it is. And this is the last one we're going to do. Okay, this is the last Friday I'm ever going to be here. Okay, this is the last this is the last that. I mean, it really is like every hour it seems like the countdown gets louder and louder,
Yeah, I mean, that I suppose is it adds significance to everything, and honestly, there's some sentiment that's added to everything as well. As you say, you're not super sentimental yet, but it might hit you. It might hit you.
I also feel like there's a lot, and I've been very clear that I didn't want a big farewell. I mean, they were going to call it the Beanie Roast, and they wanted to do a big farewell broadcast with a bunch of guests and people come by and sing and, roast and everything else. I just wasn't interested in that. Partly it's because I'm not in the looking back mode. Partly it's that I'm a little uncomfortable with that kind of attention on me. But I will tell you that as the pressure mounts leading up to my final show on Thursday, I know everybody's going to be looking to me to have some words of wisdom to say at the end of the show. They're going to want me to say something profound and thankful. And I don't know. Have you ever had to do that, Mark? Have you ever?
I thought you were getting to. So, Mark, could you write something for me?
Have you ever had to deliver one of those at the end of a job that you've had for a long, long time, where people are kind of looking at you for remarks?
Well,
I don't feel qualified for it.
Honestly, your 30 years is deserving probably of some real remarks because you're going to make them to your audience. I did have when I left Fox after 23 years. They had a little kind of informal thing in the newsroom. I think it's as though they kind of forgot that this today was my last day. I mean, on the air it was very nice, but on the air I kept it very, generic. And in the newsroom, I remember I said something that was, I don't know. I just said in the moment, But I think there's a little more pressure on you, frankly, because you're speaking to your audience. I probably should have felt that pressure, but I want to say something about television and radio. in television, there's sort of a dry cleaned aspect to it. Like I could never really say anything. I felt as though I could, that would bare my soul, let's say, on television. And I don't even know what I would say, but I'm just trying to speak to the fact that on radio, your relationship with the listener, and I really felt very strongly about the people who watched me regularly on television, but I suggest that radio, there's a connection over your 4-hour show every day that is a real enduring one, and they feel as though they know you, they love you, they know all your quirks and idiosyncrasies, so there's a little more pressure on you to come up with something,
Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, it's a very personal relationship. Radio is a very personal medium, and I guess what I'm worried about is that I'm not going to leave the audience satisfied with whatever it is I say. I mean, I can just come out and say how grateful I am for, their patronage over the decades, but I wish I were a better wordsmith. You know what I mean? To be able to come up with something. I think I need Coach Taylor from Friday Night Lights to do the speech is what I need, because he's really the go-to for all the best speeches. So maybe I'll just find some tape on him and play that.
Well, that'd be funny, and it'd be consistent with who you are. I think also that, your crowd, your crew there, they'll get you through whatever, and I really think I'm so envious, because I think that your constellation of players is so strong and even has endured all of these changes. And so even on the last day, I think that you're helped by all the people who are there to make it entertaining, poignant, to do all those things that are important. I mean, I personally would have loved to have seen you celebrated, and they fly Gordon Lightfoot in or something, or one of your big
heroes.
Right, exactly. Like I would have loved that. But I understand what you're saying, and I also understand that because of who you are, you're a little reclusive in your own way, and so that could make you uncomfortable. I get that.
I will say, we haven't even mentioned this on the air, that Jimmy Kimmel is coming by on Thursday, so cool. Who, for folks who don't know, worked on our show for 5 years. Adam Carolla is coming by, who was with the Kevin and Bean Show for 7 years. And I think there may be some other people that we may be hearing from as well. So it'll be a little bit of old home week. And,
that's great. That's great.
I like those guys, and I like having them on anytime anyway. So I couldn't really protest, because it's anytime you have, Kimmel, and it's going to be fun.
Oh, but, yeah. I mean, Mr. Burcham was launched on your show, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that was Carolla's first ever being on the radio. It was on the Kevin and Bean Show was that character. Yeah. But, those guys and Kennedy and Carson Daly and Chris Hardwick and so many other people that have worked on our show over the years, I mean, they were all so talented that they would have made it even if we'd never met them, you know what I mean? But it's still fun to be a tiny part of their journey. It's still, when I tune in and watch Jimmy hosting the Oscars, I'm like, I know that dude. It still makes it. I'm still so proud of the success of all of them.
Well, and I have to say that they worked so well on the show. Jimmy used to do sports and used to do the gambling stuff, and it was just great. And there are others. Now that you've mentioned, there's Matt Money Smith and
Money too. Yeah,
I just think that everybody has distinguished themselves on that show and continues to. So it's cool.
We always talk about how the talented ones, they are able to get off the boat. Kevin and I are still steering. You know what I mean? We're still the guys left behind, just running the thing back and forth on the ferry route. But
it's a very nice boat, Bean. That's all I'll say.
Lots of very talented other sailors get on and then find a way off, is what I'm saying. They're the smart ones.
So tell me what's involved in disengaging from life in this country. Like, what did you had to come to this decision, which you have come to. I'm sure it wasn't an easy one. And then how do you then organize these things? You have properties here, you have lives here, and give us a sense of that.
I mean, look, we've all moved. Everybody listening probably has moved at one time or another, and they know what a hassle it is. You just multiply it by 100, because there's so much paperwork involved in moving internationally that I had no idea about. Things like you have to send an inventory of everything that you're moving into the country, for instance, because they want to make sure you're not actually trying to escape an import tax. They want to make sure you're not bringing things into the country to sell. So they want a record of everything that you're bringing in, and you have to promise that you won't sell it or give it away or throw it away within 6 months, things like that. Paperwork like you have to get an invitation from the Queen, her government really, to bring your dog into the country. Heathrow has to know ahead of time that your dog is coming. And obviously there's a lot of paperwork that's involved in that you have to do right up to within 5 days of travel. But you can't get into the country unless you've told them ahead of time that the dog is coming, for instance. There's just been so much stuff like that. And just look, we're renting a place over there, and there are just so many things involved in renting property that we just didn't know anything about. Things like a stamp tax, things like a TV license. There's just a lot of stuff like that you just don't know because it's different from America. So every day has been a learning curve. And, God bless my wife who has been, she's been on the forefront of all of this paperwork. But it's crazy. And her visa, obviously, she needs to be a legal resident. So we haven't received that paperwork yet. It's supposed to be here by December 3rd. But
so her citizenship remains U.S. despite the fact that she's married to you?
Yes, she can come in legally. There's no problem with that. But she had to surrender her passport while they're processing her paperwork, and then they'll mail it back to her with her residency, with her visa, essentially. So if that doesn't arrive in time before the date of the flight that we have scheduled, she can't go because they won't let her into the country. So we're, trying to work up contingency plans on how we're going to handle that. So it's an awful lot of moving parts, plus trying to sell 2 properties at the same time. And, we've already moved the furniture and the art and the clothes and everything out of the Seattle house. And we're getting ready to do all of that all over again in New Orleans next week. So it's just a question of just lining everything up and hoping it all gets there.
But you've sold your properties now. You found buyers.
Not yet. If you have a lot of rich friends, I know. If you would please send them in my direction, we're stacking them deep and selling them cheap. And there is a friends and family discount. So yeah, happy to sell them. Happy to sell them now.
Well, we have a lot of listeners who are well heeled, so maybe somebody can help. Hey, can I ask you about something that maybe if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to. But you took time off, and you were quite good about talking about the fact that hey, I needed time to kind of get my head where I wanted it to be. Can you speak to that for a second? I always feel like people toil with this problem, and it's nice to know somebody who is like yourself actually also fights that problem.
Well, I think it kind of goes...
Or did fight it. Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's ongoing for all of us, Mark. Let's face it. None of us are ever cured or healed. We've all got problems. It's just a question of how willing people are to talk about them in public. And I just think we live in a magical time right now where the stigma is certainly not erased, but I think that nobody looks down on somebody if they're having emotional or mental problems anymore because they realize it's just part of life. It'd be weird in this world if you didn't have struggles. You know what I mean? With all the pressures and all the things that are going on. And it kind of goes back to what you said earlier about the relationship with the audience, that they know me and I know them, and we have a lot of interaction with each other in lots of different ways through social media and everything. And there's no reason to lie to people. If I had a broken leg, no one would have thought anything of me taking time off to be in the hospital and to be in traction and to have that heal, right? It's the same thing. I mean, if something's going on in your head, it's just as serious as something that's going on in your body, and you should see a doctor and you should get treated and you should take medicine for it if it's going to make you better. And that's all it was, is I just got to a point for a lot of reasons, some internal and some external, where I just needed to step back and take a break. At that point, I'd been doing the show for over 28 years, and it was really wearing me down. And I needed a reset, and that's all it was. And there was no reason to lie about it, and I'd never considered doing that. But going on the air and telling people what was up, I'm so glad I did, because I've heard from so many people, hundreds and hundreds of people, who they felt like they could talk about it after that. They felt like they weren't as alone after that. And I still get emails almost every single week from people who say, especially now as they're writing to say goodbye, they say, oh, and by the way, when you took that time off, it made me think about my own life and my own feelings and taking care of myself better and things like that. So I think it was just a positive all around. I came out of it better, and I think the listeners related to it, responded well to it. And I'm glad we're at that point where it's okay to talk about.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think that you're right to point to the culture and how it's changed, because I think that
Very
that
much
is something
so.
that wasn't.
And then some asshole on a podcast asks you about it. You have to go through the whole thing again. Yeah. I mean, that's the only downside to it,
I
you think it's asked and answered, and then somebody brings it up, and then what?
Yeah. Well, the other thing I was reminded of, kind of reminded as you read these different accounts of your, they do these kind of reports, and the fact that in all the trades and all the rest, that this very high-profile radio personality is leaving his gig. I mean, it's insane. insane. You're in the very enviable position. I mean, people work their entire lives to get to the spot you're in. And then, you're now saying, hey, it's been great, but I'm moving on. One of the things they point to in one of these pieces is that it was a surprise, that you announced it and no one knew it. Is that true?
I mean, I think... No, I'm trying to think. I want to give you an honest answer, but I'm not sure I remember exactly how the timeline worked. I mean, I think there was some talk when I left the show last year for a few weeks, as we just discussed. I think there was some talk then about whether I wanted to come back or not. And I decided I did. And at that time, when I came back, I said, all right, I'll stay till the end of next year. That'll be an even 30 years that we've been doing the program. So that's a good time to go. That's the Asperger's in me, by the way, that says you got to leave on an even number. So I think certainly the people I work with knew. I think the audience might have been surprised when I made the announcement in March that I would be leaving by the end of this year. I think maybe that's what they're referring to as it was news to the people listening.
Okay, so it was the audience that was surprised.
Yeah, I didn't spring it. I didn't spring it on my coworkers on the air. No.
You everybody was you told them.
Yeah.
Was the management of Kroq, because they've got so much? I mean, again, I don't mean to keep revisiting.
There's a lot of equity in the name.
Yes,
for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's like you're their star. How did they take it, or what did they? I'm sure they tried to throw money at you, or you can do it from over there. Is that what they said?
Well, both of those things. Yes. I think they understood. I mean, I think they were disappointed, obviously, because it's one less thing you have to worry about when you're running a radio station. If you have a mature show that kind of does their own thing, you don't have to hold them very much. But that's going to be the case with me gone, too. I mean, we have such an unbelievably talented crew, as you mentioned earlier, of people that I work with Jensen Karp and with Allie McKay and with Kevin and with others that work on the show. I think the show is going to be fine. I think the show is going to go on, just like it always has. Honestly, as I said this morning online, except without my dead weight, they're going to be fine. So, I mean, I think they would have liked the Kevin and Bean show to stay on forever. They've made it clear that we've got a home as long as we want at Kroq. But at some point, when I turned 40, I thought, how can they still have me on Kroq, for God's sakes? I'm so much older than the target demo. And then I went in there at 50. And soon I'm going to be 60. And at some point, you have to go, enough is enough, right?
Well, yes and no, Bean. I mean,
I've worked there for half my life.
I get it. But look, that's like saying, it's the old Mick Jagger thing. Like, I don't want to be dancing on stage when I'm 60, whatever he said. Well, dude, you're 70-something and you run to the stage to dance on it. So
yes, that's true.
I just think our view of these numbers changes as we reach them.
And also 100%.
Yeah, and also how relevant and still effective you are. I mean, and plus you wear shorts a lot. You kind of look cool and young, and you kind of offbeat.
I don't feel like an old man. I really don't, and that's one of the reasons why I am still optimistic that I'll be able to find work, because if people look at me on paper, they may go, oh, we don't need this old white dude with the funny accent. But I think if I meet people, if I can get in front of people, Mark, I think I'm personable. I think people would go, oh, this guy sounds like a fun guy to hang out with, right?
Actually, I was going to suggest that you not actually meet anybody in person.
Okay. That's probably good advice. That's good advice.
The different strategies. We'll see how yours works out.
I'm hoping. I'm hoping I can get a chance.
It is amazing, though, that through these decades, you've been so current on music. That was one of the other things, just as a guy who's not your age, but who's also older.
How dare you? We're very close, Mark.
I'm astounded that you're so on top of music. And I know this is sort of like, this is a legitimate, sincere love of yours, right? But really, alt-rock music is a sincere love?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I think just like you, Mark, you and I grew up listening to the radio, under the pillow at night and fell in love with pop music. I mean, that's how I got into radio, and I never lost my love for pop music or for rock music. And I mean, it's part of the gig when you work for a new music radio station, but every single week I'm excited to see the new releases that are coming out and what's new. I love music as much as I love radio.
You're amazing that way. I got to tell you, really, one of the things about Bean is that he does, I think, really breathe this stuff in with an enthusiasm. It's not like a school assignment. Music, pop culture, really, I feel as though you were oddly well-suited for this world that you ended up in and ended up excelling in. It's really weird.
Yeah, I mean it's great if your interests match your skill set and matches the needs of the job too. I mean it was a perfect combination. I mean I've been so blessed, so lucky to have this job for so long, where every day I get to talk about things that I'm actually interested in, and a lot of things that other people aren't interested in too. By the way, as you know from listening to the show, I've had a fair amount of that in my career too.
But that's the great thing about being a successful show. All of a sudden, what I'm interested in, you're not interested in, you're now going to have to be interested in.
Right. Sometimes we can make it funny, right?
Tell everybody how we know each other, and because I was in there for the primordial ooze of your great career.
Well, let me tell you something about Mark Thompson. I don't know if people know this, but Mark and I have known each other for decades, long before I moved to California and got a job at Kroq. Mark and I worked together at a tiny little radio station, of a daytime radio station that was 1,000 watts in Herndon, Virginia.
And daytime radio station means that at sunset, they turn the radio station off.
Literally turn it off, which means in December, the station is gone at 4:45 p.m., right in the middle of afternoon drive. Good times.
Anyway, go ahead.
But Mark was a great disc jockey. Still is, obviously, still doing your popular shows. But he was a great disc jockey, someone I really, really looked up to, because he was so much better than anybody else on the station at that time, and went on to have a very successful radio career before television. But I mean, you and I, kind of met and became friends then, and have just stayed in touch throughout the many, many years. But do you remember, Mark, in the many years that you were doing television only, how often I would say to you, please go back to radio?
Yeah, you were really great that way. Yeah, you did.
I used to say,
you belong
it wasn't
on the
that I was
radio.
great. Yeah, you were just so good on the radio. I used to love listening to you when you were doing nights at WKBW in Buffalo. I just remember just being in awe of how great you were on that station.
That's so kind of you.
Well, I thought it was a real loss when you left radio for television. But I mean, look at you with your movie star good looks. How could you not end up in front of the camera, right?
Yeah, good point.
But now that those are gone, I think it's great that radio is still there to embrace you and welcome you back. And you're enjoying doing radio now, right?
Bean said that I love radio. I've always loved it, and I think, in truth, I love radio, and I've always loved it more than television. But it seemed to me that unless you can reach the apex of the business, and I'm not just saying this, I mean, Kevin and Bean, that is a rarefied world. Kevin and Bean, Ryan Seacrest, Jim Rome, there's a reason he's going into the Hall of Fame, because you got to get to that mountaintop and maintain, and it's hard. And I give you a lot of credit. Television started taking off for me, and it just seemed like the right course for me. But I always loved radio, and it's great to be back in it.
I'm so glad you are.
I remember that we were at a station where, and then I want to talk about one other station where you went also after this station, and then I'll let you go. But I remember we were at a station, as Bean says, it's so small. And the receptionist came running into me. I was on in the afternoon. She said, my car was just stolen. And she gave me the description of the car, the description of the guys, and the license number. And I went on the air. I mean, she, of course, comes in with this urgency, like, get this on the air right away. And so I did, thinking, no one's going to be able to. I mean, I don't know how many people are listening, but it's not like we're a huge station. But people did hear it, and they did pull the guys over.
Wow.
And it turned out her car was repossessed. And these people, and that was there at that little station.
That's amazing.
Yes. Yeah, I'll never forget it.
That's an awesome story. We had, at one point, I wasn't on the air, but I guess somebody was, when a cow walked in the front door. Did you hear that story ever, Mark? A cow walked in the front door. It was a hot day, no air conditioning, just leaving the door open, and a cow literally walked in from the field next door into the radio station.
That place now, I mean, it was like, as sort of Bean's suggesting, kind of rural or quasi-rural. Now it's all like urbanized, that entire area.
Oh, it's gone. The space doesn't even exist. I've tried to drive by it before, and it's all paved over. It's part of a housing complex now. You couldn't, I mean, the frequency was given away years ago, and they used their tower as a cell phone tower. But that's what happened to a lot of AM stations. There are a lot of stations in this country, AM, that are just being turned off. They literally can't even give them away. There's no one to run them anymore.
I'd heard actually that there's a move to put everything on the digital spectrum, which I think is a mistake.
That's what they do in lots of Europe, though, and it's very successful there. Those brands are able to continue.
I just feel as though one of the great things about broadcast is that you can pick it up, you don't need a digital device, but maybe that's just an old school view I have. I also feel like that gives the government control in a way that I don't like. I don't know.
No, I understand. But also, I mean, you try listening to AM radio in your car tonight, Mark. It's almost impossible to pick up. There's so much noise now because we have so many electronics in the air now. You know what I mean? There's just so much interference to the signals that it's not viable for most people anymore.
I see. Yeah, that's a decent point. You went on from that station and you worked in the Washington, D.C. area. That station was in Washington, D.C. You went on to this really like rockin' station, and you had a name. Tell everybody your name on that station.
I think it's the only DJ air name I ever had. I went to work. I worked for WPGC, which is another big station in the market. And I left there to go work for an upstart top 40 rock station called WAVA in Arlington, Virginia. And about 20 minutes before I went on for my first show, the program director looked at me and said, "What are you going to use on the air?" And I said, "Well, I was just going to use my name, Gene Baxter, like I always have." And he said, "Oh, that's a terrible name. The kids will hate that. You're not going to be Gene Baxter. You're going to be Flash Phillips." And I went, "Okay." So for 3.5 years, I was Flash Phillips.
Yeah.
And that was the name I had to stick with. And I didn't have a choice. You know, wasn't what could I say? No.
Right.
They just hired me to do the night shift.
I thought it made the gig cooler when I heard it. I like that you had that name. It's very showbiz, you know. I mean, they asked me to change my name. I'm Flash Phillips now, man.
Flash Phillips. WAVA.
Here's my jingle.
How can you not love that? How can you
There's
not
my jingle.
love that?
It's so dumb, Mark. It's so dumb.
What are you doing with that soundboard? Are you taking it with you to Britain?
Yeah, of course I am. You know, there are soundboards you can just, download and just put it on a touch screen. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
This happens to be a program from a company called iMedia Touch out of Canada. And I think it allows for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I don't know, about 80,000 sound bites on it, something like that. So I just have
you just call it up. What you in a search window?
Yeah.
Like how did you get that one quickly?
I just typed in Flash, and everything that has the word Flash in it comes up.
I love that.
Yeah. So I mean, I've got here's one of my favorites that I've been playing a lot this past week since the World Series ended.
Remember where you are, so you remember where you are right now.
I mean, that's some quality broadcasting right there. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
What would you say, sir?
And I called it Obamagate.
Okay.
I love this stuff. I've told them in San Francisco, the whole show that we do here in San Francisco, the politics and the economy and the information, it's all just an excuse for a handful of drops that we run every day. I love them.
That is correct.
I can actually do a whole show without talking, Mark. I can just play drops.
I love it, man. I tell you for real, it's my favorite thing. That's why I wanted a soundboard, because I feel like it's my favorite thing.
I agree. I'm terrified that I'm going to get another radio job and they're not going to allow for nonsense. You know what I mean? Because I don't know. I mean, who is a guy if he can't play? Yeah! I mean, how can you do a show without that? I'm limited.
Bean, I don't know how to express to you in front of everyone how I have immense regard for your career and for you personally. I just think what you've done is amazing. There are I'm glad you're being honored in all these different ways, because that at least, I guess, recognizes it in some fashion. But I think there are really no words to adequately describe how difficult this is. People who are listening, I think maybe now, because I've said it over and over, have some sense, but I really feel as though what you've done is incredibly hard, and I really congratulate you.
Who cares what you think? Huh? Nobody.
I appreciate that, Mark. Look, I don't take it for granted. I know that I've been blessed to have very talented people to work with. I've had talented people who have believed in me enough to put me on the radio, and there's a certain amount of luck involved in as well. I've worked hard at it. I know that. But, there are a lot of people who are more talented than I am that work harder than I do that don't make it to to this level in the industry just because life isn't fair, just because people have bad breaks sometimes. So it does not escape for me for a moment how lucky I have been and how grateful I've been for this career. I have 30 years at Kroq, but 12 years plus before that, before I even got to Kroq. So it's been, the vast majority of my life. I've been in radio, which is something that I've loved since I was in single digits. And I'm very excited about the next chapter. I can't wait to keep it going. I like to think that this 30 years at K-Rock is part of the first half of my career. You know what I mean? And now I'll be on the air till I'm 99 for the second half.
Wow, I hope so, man. I hope so. And, you could take some of that you just said here, and you can say it on K-Rock on November 7th, because it's very well stated. So, congratulations.
Thanks for that journey.
Yeah, you throw a drop in here and there, and you've got yourself a great farewell.
Thanks a lot, Dick. Way to go.
Bean, I adore you, and I'm so
I adore
proud
you
of
as well, Mark.
Thank
Look,
you for...
I want you to know, I shouldn't say this out loud, but, K&X came to me, and they wanted me to do a big, in-depth, in-studio, exit interview with them, and I said, I'm way too busy this week to do that. I got too much going on. But then my friend Mark Thompson calls. Here I am. Can't say no to you, Mark.
I appreciate it. And we're going to turn this around right away and get it up, because I want people to hear it before your last day. But it's just, it's so cool, man. I think this is
very cool of you to ask me to come on. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed it as always.
A great life, well led. I'm looking forward to the next chapter. The next professional chapter will be interesting. I'm amazed. I'm hoping that you can get something going in Britain. They don't like, we love their accents. They don't love our accents.
Absolutely. Yeah, we bastardized the Queen's English. They got no time for us. Look, it does not escape me that it is an uphill climb. I get that, but that's also part of the fun of it,
Oh, yeah.
Nothing wrong with being challenged.
Look, let's just we do a little road trip for the weekend in Europe. We'll take a meeting on that. For now, you get settled. Go over there, get settled. But in the late spring of next year, I'm going to pitch a little road trip. We'll go to, I don't know, out to the Scottish Highlands or something.
You're breaking up, Mark. I can't hear you anymore. I don't know what happened. It sounded like you were starting to say something there, but I just lost you. So
it's Bean Baxter, everybody. Bean,
bye.
we love you.
Bye.
Bye, Bean. Good luck.
Bye.
Hope you enjoyed my conversation with Bean. Next episode, we'll catch up on some politics, and I will tell the story about having to evacuate. And it's the fact. My whole neighborhood burned down, with the exception of 3 homes, mine being one of them. I'll tell you about that entire thing, about witnessing the flames on the security camera. It was crazy, and it was emotional. And I'll share a little bit of that with you in the next episode. Thanks for the ways you support us, as I always do. I will thank you again. Thanks for being here. And until next time, bye-bye.
I want to thank you for all the ways that you support my friends on the Edge podcast. And if you haven't already, why don't you show your support and subscribe? What's the matter with you? Go to Edge Show. Oh, it's Edge Dash. What's with the dash? Stupid. All right, I want to thank you for all the ways that you support my friends on the Edge podcast. Show your support and leave something on their website, edge-show.com. Stupid. Why is there a dash?